So it's March 22nd, and I'm with Brenda Macdougall at the Native Studies Department at the university, and I'm interviewing her for the Gabriel Dumont Archives and for the Isla Crosse video project. And let's see. So Brenda, if you just want to tell me how you got involved with doing research in Isla Crosse.
I became involved with Dr. Frank Tuff, who used to be at the University of Saskatchewan in the Native Studies Department here. And he has long been a researcher for Métis rights cases. And I became a researcher as an undergraduate. And when I returned to Saskatchewan in order to do my doctorate, he was at the time becoming involved in the Métis land claim in northwestern Saskatchewan, and I became interested and attached my doctoral dissertation to that research, and so I decided to look at the community of Isla Crosse.
Okay, and right now you're working with the Matrix project. Can you maybe tell me a little bit about the project and what its goals are?
The Matrix project is a large-scale research project that is centered on the Northwest Métis land claim, which was filed several years ago now. I can't remember the exact date. And a number of years ago, about 3 years ago, Dr. Tuff was brought into the project by the Métis Nation of Saskatchewan in order to coordinate and conduct the research. And there are a series of student researchers at the University of Alberta's School of Native Studies. There have probably been over a dozen students over the years now that have worked on the project in various capacities. We have been cataloging and databasing all of the archival records for Isla Crosse from the fur trade, from the script commissions, and now they're undertaking use and occupancy studies and doing geography studies in order to map the land base and to catalog place names and that type of thing. We pretty well have most of the documents organized now, although we are continuing to database them on computer.
Okay. Why do you think the land has been so important in the community?
Well, the community is the second oldest in Saskatchewan. It's existed since 1776, and the family names for Isla Crosse are not that much different than they were 250 years ago. There hasn't been a lot of out-migration of people. Certainly people have left for periods of time, but those family names remain very strong in the area. McCollums, La Libertés, Morins, Montgrons, those types of names are as old as the community itself, and I think that it's quite certainly that if people have been there that long, if their ancestors were there, then they too will have that shared connection to the land. And they're very proud of that history of being the second oldest community. People know their history and they're very proud of who they are and how old their community is and the strength of their community.
Okay. You talked about family. Can you maybe elaborate on that, about the extended family system in the community?
What we can certainly identify from the records and from talking to people in the community is that the names that are in Isla Crosse also spread out throughout the entire Northwest region. You find family connections to people in Green Lake, Beauval, north to Buffalo Narrows, a little bit in the Loche, and then all of the smaller communities: Dillon, Turner Lake, Pine House. And what happened when the fur trade was really at its strongest was that Isla Crosse was the center of that district for the fur trade, and it was sort of the base of operations, and families were sent out into various communities to either trap and hunt, to occupy other posts, and to facilitate trade with local First Nations groups. And so you even see connections between families in Canoe Lake bands, English River band, and there is that strong component of inter-family connections across a very large geographical landscape.
Okay. What about the church? Why has the church been so important in the community?
The church arrived in, or was established in 1846 by the Oblate missionaries, and several years later the Grey Nuns came. And the church sort of acted as a central point in the community that people could come to. People are predominantly Catholic, and have been Catholic. There were certainly links to the Catholic Church as fur traders were coming in and intermarrying with local First Nations populations. And the church has for a period of time certainly worked to bring people together. They had community gardens. There were certain times of the year when people would come in for particular services, especially at Christmas and Easter were central times. That doesn't mean that people have always been happy with the church, but it certainly has served as a focus, as a central component of that community. And of course it did establish the schools. What we come to know as residential schools, there was certainly one in Crosse, and it was specifically designated for a period of time for Métis children. And other residential schools throughout the province and throughout Western Canada were not specifically for Métis people, they were for First Nations people. So it's a unique residential school experience.
Okay. From your experience as a researcher, why do you think that the church plays such an important part in the community today?
I think that people, it's been there so long, and it's always been a part of people's lives, and in that respect it's become a part of their tradition. Even if they're not always happy with things that occur within the church, or that the stance that the clergy might take on particular issues, there's never been a whole-scale rejection of the church. And I think people still see the church as a place to come together and to celebrate certain occasions of marriages, and to commemorate people's lives through ceremony.
Okay. What about the language? How do you think the language connects with the land, and why does that remain so strong in the community, the language?
There's been a lot of research about the language in Crosse. There was a large language study undertaken by a Dutch linguist by the name of Peter Bakker, who was recording and cataloging the different various dialects of Michif. And what he noted about the Crosse language was that it was really very Cree. You saw some French usage, but by and large it's a Cree language with variations. And the place names, I mean, if you just ask people what things were called, everybody will use Cree words. And it's only very recently that people have started to not speak that ancestral language, which again you wouldn't see in southern Saskatchewan. In the north, even with the residential school experience, first language continued to be this variation of Michif, strongly influenced by Cree. And it's really only younger generations that have started to lose that language, and it's probably traceable to the introduction of the public school system by the Saskatchewan government. And it isn't traceable to the residential school as established by the Oblate missions. So people know who they are through that language, and I think even if children aren't learning it today, there's still there's an effort by older people to remind people of what things were called, and to tell those stories surrounding those places. They're just doing it in the English language now instead of in that ancestral language. I'm sure there will be a revitalization in the Crosse for language like there has been elsewhere, though.
Okay. Is there anything else you can think of that you missed or that you'd want to say about the community?
It is, Crosse is probably one of the most beautiful communities I've ever been to. It's got the most beautiful geography, but more importantly than its landscape, what's beautiful about it is its people. There's a real, when you go into Crosse, you can sense a real pride. the community is quite well maintained and looked after, and people feel very strongly about that community, and that comes across, and so that I think is what makes it beautiful.
Okay, that's it. Thank you very much.